Hey there my lovelies, and welcome to my BookTube channel, The Sassy Library Fox. My name is V, and today we're finally going for my May wrap-up video. This is somewhat kind of an impromptu video. I didn't prepare all too much because, as usual, or as usual lately, I didn't know I would have a little bit of time to record a video, so here we are. I'm using every single time I get a chance to record a video because it hasn't been that easy to find time lately. Anyway, I got my coffee at the ready. I prepared a little bit the rating and the names of the books I read, so yeah, I prepared a little bit. But most of this video will be just me shaking out things from my non-existent sleeve. Anyway, let's do this. Let's talk about the 4 books I read in May. And yes, I managed to read 4 books. Despite all the stress I had in May, I still managed to read 4 books. I think well, for me personally, they don't count, or some of them don't count that fully because, for instance, I read Babel over the course of like 5 months. So yeah, but we will just say I read those 4 books in May, or at least I finished them in May. Let's put it that way. Okay, so first things first. Let's talk about the first book I read and finished in May, and it was Love Theoretically by Hazelwood. I gotta admit, I took this book from April into May and then finished it in May, so yeah, that's how I got most of my reading done last month. But I'm not mad about it. 4 books is a lot, so there's that. And I finally have a little bit more to talk about in my wrap-up videos like this one. Okay, enough said. This book, I rated it 4 paws. I gotta be honest here, I think it was the Hazelwood book that made me laugh the most. I can't remember that I laughed so much when I read all the other books by Hazelwood, at least. I think Love on the Brain was very funny as well, but Love Theoretically was definitely the book that caused me to jiggle. As for what it is about, it's basically about Elsie, and Elsie is a theoretical scientist, I might say, yeah, and she has a job that doesn't pay her enough. She is some sort of, I wrote it down here, an adjunct professor. And apparently adjunct professors don't get all too much money, and she doesn't have a fixed workplace, she just helps out. And well, because of that, she kind of got a side job and plays fake girlfriend for a couple of men that need to have fake girlfriends to pretend for like one night that they are not alone. They kind of borrow her for a night to go to galas or events or to family gatherings, that kind of stuff. And apparently she has a client who booked her more than once, and his name is George, and she helped him navigate the dangerous waters of his family. And his brother Jake is very suspicious of her and doesn't like her, and yeah, turns out that he is the guy who stands in her way of getting her really dream job at MIT. So yeah, there's the entire fake girlfriend dynamic, and Jake doesn't know why, and it's really weird. But oh, it gets so cute later on in the story when they both fall in love. And yeah, Elsie's a little bit of a people pleaser, and she has that old professor of hers who calls her the wrong name. I think he calls her Elise or something like that. And she never corrected him because he's her mentor. And yeah, she also didn't tell her roommate that she isn't into art movies. And yeah, I found it really interesting. It was a very interesting point of view, but Elsie's thoughts are in such stark contrast to what she actually says and shows on the outside. So it was hilarious sometimes, and I loved a lot. And also Jake is so cute and so sweet, and the more we get to see of him, the more you can't help but fall in love with him, just like Elsie. And yeah, I really like that one. I think this is the one I liked the most for now. Oh, it was just adorable and cute. I love that we had a diabetes representation with Elsie, and it was also very interesting. I don't know, I usually Ellie Hazelwood's intimate scenes give me the ick. It was once again a little bit like that, but not as bad as usually. And also I hate third act breakups, and of course one of those happened in here as well. They happen in every Ellie Hazelwood book. This is not a spoiler. This is typical Ellie Hazelwood. If you've read one of her books, you know that there will be a third act breakup in the others as well. But I think this time around it actually made sense. And I wasn't that mad about it because, yeah, with this book, with the context and with everything that's been going on in Elsie's life, this actually made sense. So for once, I found it good that there was a third act breakup, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah. I rated that one 4 paws. It was great. I loved it. It was hilarious. I had a good time, and I read it pretty fast. At the ending of April and at the beginning of May. Okay, let's move to the second book and take a sip of coffee first. The second book I read in May was A Study in Black Brew by Marie Howalt. I rated that one 4 paws. I think if you listened to the title, you might know that it is a Sherlock Holmes retelling of A Study in Scarlet. And even though it's kind of similar to Sherlock Holmes, we have a Sherlock and a Watson equivalent in this story. We have Kaliev and we have Raitan. I hope I pronounced them right. I honestly don't know how you pronounce them, but I hope I did their names justice. And Raitan is, well, Sherlock basically, or loosely based on him. And Kaliev is the equivalent to Watson. And I really liked that story. It was a novella, so I was through it very fast. I got it as an arc from Ned Galay. And thank you so much for providing me with this arc. I had a really great time. And it was so nice. I always read it when I commuted from work. And it was really perfect to pick up in between every once in a while. And as for what it is about, it's basically about Kaliev. Kaliev is a chemist. The interesting thing about this retelling is that Kaliev and Raitan are actually aliens. They live on Gammak, that's their home planet, and the alien species they belong to is called the Vendek. I found that really interesting because Kaliev is forced to move in next to Raitan, and Kaliev has some sort of how to put it, chronic illness, chronic asthma, but also another disability called hyposmia, which means they can't smell all too well. And apparently the Vendek, the species they belong to, bases a lot of their interactions on smell. That was really interesting. I really liked the disability rep. I found myself in the asthma representation because I could really feel with Kaliev whenever they had to take a flight of stairs and arrived at the top completely breathless. I could relate to that. When I'm highly allergic, I suffer from asthma as well, so I really appreciated this representation in a book and how it affects people. And even though Kaliev belonged to an alien species, their breathing problems and their struggle felt real. So yeah, Kaliev, by the way, is non-binary and goes by they, them pronouns. I really liked it as well. And as for romance, I don't think there was any romance. I mean, Kaliev thinks that Raitan is attractive and charismatic, but aside of that, nothing ever truly happens. I don't know if this is the first book in a series and if there are planned more. But yeah, if you're looking for romance, you won't find it in this one. But you will find a nice case, a murder mystery around humans, and you will find nice deduction skills from Raitan and also Kaliev. So that was great. I really enjoyed it. It was a really easy read and fast to read, and I rated it with 4 paws because it was great. Okay, let's move on to the next book. Another book, another sip. And the third book I read, which I read over the course of a couple of months, was Babel by R.F. Kuang. I gave it 4.5 paws because it was really great. It's more or less some dark academia themed book. We follow Robin Swift, who was picked up from Canton after his family died from cholera, I think, if I remember it correctly. And he's taken in by an English professor and has to study real hard. The English professor wants him to go to Babel, and Babel is basically a school for languages. And Robin becomes part of a cohort at that university, and they are called babblers because they speak more languages than one. And yeah, the book is told from Robin's perspective, from the days when the professor picked him up to his childhood, and then later on it's about him going to Babel and learning the languages, his study years there. And this book, it's huge. It has 540 plus pages. There are so many topics that are tackled. Like, we have the entire thing of racism, because all the 4 members of Robin's cohort, including Robin himself, Letty, Victoire and Rami, they are all from different countries. They all speak different languages, and they also all have different ethnic backgrounds. So that was really interesting. Also, there were so many serious topics like colonialism, racism and misogyny, also oppression, and yeah, the topics were quite heavy. At first it feels like you're reading a lot of academia stuff, and it's obvious that this book is some sort of ode to languages, which I loved because there were so many things about languages I totally agreed with. and that were put so well. I think if you like to study languages like I do, I've learned a couple of languages in my life because I find it really interesting and I love to learn new languages, then Babel will be definitely a book for you because it appreciates all the different languages that are spoken on the entire world, basically. But also so many other themes that were important, and it's really hard to encompass everything this book stands for and means. I gotta say, the ending threw me. I honestly didn't know what to expect from the ending. I had that feeling of dread, what might happen at the ending. And whoa, there's a lot of build up. I think the first 50% of the book you have build up and build up and build up, but then it takes off and one thing after the other happens, and I personally didn't want to put it down anymore, which also reflects on my Goodreads updates because I started to read it in January, but then continually read pages in May and finished it in May, so that says a lot. And I rated it with 4.5 paws because it's really such a thought-provoking and really well done book, and all the research that must have gone into this. Wow, I absolutely loved it. 4.5 paws, definitely. If you like languages, if you like books that tackle serious topics like racism and colonialism, then this one is certainly for you. Okay, and the last book, another sip, was The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. Casey McQuiston and I have a difficult relationship. Well, me and her books have a difficult relationship. I don't know Casey McQuiston personally, but with the books it's always either hit or miss. I don't know, some books I loved and others I didn't. So I came out of this one with 3.5 paws. At first I really enjoyed it. We had two different point of views. In the first half we have Theo's point of view, and in the second half we have Kit's point of view. This was interesting, or an interesting choice at that. But also the book is about those two, and those two had a nasty breakup 4 years ago when they wanted to go on a vacation journey tour through Europe together to taste all the different great foods that are in every country. And then they broke up. And then they didn't speak a word with each other anymore. And the interesting thing about those two and their dynamic is that they were best friends before. They knew each other from childhood days, then became friends, then became more, had a really solid and good relationship until the day they broke up. And then they became strangers for the next 4 years. So you might say that this is some sort of from childhood friends to lovers to friends and back to lovers again. Yeah, and in between, you can't really say they were enemies in between because they just didn't talk for 4 years. So yeah, there was some serious animosity between those two. And we gradually learn about their breakup, what happened 4 years ago. We see everything through Theo's point of view at the beginning, and then at the halfway mark it changes to Kit's point of view. I gotta say, I liked Theo's point of view, but I enjoyed Kit's point of view more. But the interesting thing is, the plot kind of lost me near the ending. I mean, they are on the bus, they travel through Europe and through different countries and cities and taste everything that is to taste. And Theo and Kit have this sort of competition where they fight against each other who has more amorous adventures. And this was fun up until to a point it wasn't anymore. I know a lot of people might have complicated feelings about them basically sleeping around Europe with different people and not with each other. I personally think it fit their dynamic at the beginning of the book, and gradually you see that it's not that much fun for them anymore. The second half, Kit's point of view was really the point of view of a poet. He has a certain way to express himself and to tell his story. And I really loved his point of view, but I didn't like the heavy focus on them not really figuring out that they want to be together again, but the heavy focus on the intimate scenes. There were just too many, and I think their entire friendship, which I loved at the beginning of the story, there was this heavy focus of friends that used to grow up together and then fell out or had a falling out for 4 years and didn't know anything about each other anymore. And then they were so familiar with each other and knew things no one else would know, but also had to learn a lot of new things about each other and had to recalibrate their point of view and how they saw each other. And in the second half, there was just being intimate with each other in every single country. And I think it kind of lost what made it attractive for me in the first place. If that makes any sense. I don't know if I make any sense here. But yeah, that's the reason why I gave it 3.5 paws, because I really liked the first part of the book, but then they kind of lost me with this heavy focus on just physical stuff in the second half, because I wanted more emotional depth. I think I will put it that way. I wanted more emotional depth at the ending of the book when they actually got together again, which is no spoiler because basically the entire book is about them. Yeah. Anyway, I rated it 3.5 paws because of all of those reasons I just mentioned. And yeah, it was a good book, a solid one, but it kind of lost me closer to the ending. Yeah, let's say it that way. I think that would be appropriate and fit my mood. Okay, so those were the 4 books I read in May. I'm kind of proud of me. I actually managed to finish a couple of books and to read some new ones. And yeah, another month I managed to read 4 books. I'm on a roll. I hope I can keep it up until the end of the year. Maybe I will even manage to read 5 books in 1 month. But I'm not holding my breath. So yeah, there's that. I would love to hear which kind of books you read in May. If you read any of the books I read, if you agree with my opinion or if you disagree, I would really love to hear your thoughts. Which book was your favorite of last month? I'm always looking for new book recommendations, as you all know. And yeah, I think that's it. We're already at the ending of my video and there's nothing left to say except of take care, stay healthy and safe, and see you around the next time. Bye!